up, everybody? Welcome to a special episode of Big Bang Wrestling. I'm your host, Marcus Dunaway, and this is Nick.
Yep.
And today I have a special guest on here with us, and Bruiser Graham. Bruiser, how you doing today?
Oh man, I tell you what, I'm glad you guys came. You're at my humble abode, and we're ready to talk some wrestling and get into some career of an independent guy, which is myself, Bruiser Graham, and just have a little fun, tell a few tales, and maybe get drunk afterwards. Who knows?
Sounds like a plan. You've had a long career, 27 years now, isn't it? Or
Man, I don't know. What decade is it? No, I'm going to tell you something, Marcus. I cried. I cried when I was real little because my dad took me to see wrestling, of course. And in the Lynchburg Armory, Mr. Wrestling defeated the Super Destroyer. And I cried.
He has no idea who you're talking about.
I always like the bad guys.
you know who's talking about.
And when my dad took me and the Super Destroyer got beat, I cried.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. And you know what? That proved to me I had a passion for wrestling.
Yep.
I was invested in it at a young age. Who's to know, years and years and decades later, I would have fulfilled a lot of my ambitions and dreams and still be passionate about it.
Right.
But if you're passionate about something as a kid, that never goes away. So I was so glad that my dad got me involved and I got invested in it at such a young age. What was your question again? That's how I started. I was invested, man. I was invested.
So that was probably like the one moment that really got you into wrestling.
Well, yeah, it was a combination of a lot of things. But like I said, when you're a kid and you're that invested in something, you really want to do it.
But that moment, that's kind of what planted the seed, right?
That was definitely a seed plant.
That's
yes,
what
absolutely.
Was seeing that one thing and.
Well, it was. I had saw it on television, and then when I went to see it in person, it was real to me.
Yeah.
I love the athletic side of it. I love the storytelling, and when you get hooked, it's like a good book. When you get hooked in something, you don't want to put it down. Yeah. You want to finish. So.
Yeah. And like from that moment, seeing them two wrestle in Lynchburg Armory, you never would have thought, years later you'd be in the ring doing the same things that they were doing.
Right, and it's. As they say, it's been a long and strange journey. But yes, you never know where life's going to take you from one moment to the other.
Right.
But you know where you want to go and where it leads you, and you've got to follow that. And that's what I did from an early age. Now, it took a little while to get there, but once I got there, I am so blessed with the opportunities I've had.
I know you went to college and you actually graduated college before you even started training, or what did you go to college for?
Well, I was kind of a late bloomer as far as wrestling goes. I was always fairly sharp in academics, and I graduated high school in '87 from Appomattox High School. Then I went to Longwood University now, which was Longwood College when I went.
Right.
I started to go in as an English teacher.
Oh.
However, I thought better against teaching, so I graduated with a degree in psychology.
Oh,
and then I graduated in 1991. Now, during that time, on the athletic side of things, I was actually a tennis player in high school.
Oh, okay.
I played for Appomattox and also played at Longwood as a collegiate tennis player back when I was about 150 pounds. But I always loved the athletic side of things.
Right.
Me and my friends at college, we would play football on the weekends. We would play, of course, racquetball. Me and my friend, I had a super competitive roommate at college, and we did a lot of running. He was really pushing me to weight lift, and he was just a tremendous athlete. And I really enjoyed my time there because he pushed me to be an athlete that I didn't think I was going to be. However, the wrestling thing, when you're in college and women and whatever, that kind of gets pushed to the back burner. So
So now you started wrestling in '94, right?
Well, what actually happened after '91 when I graduated,
Right.
I was still kind of, I didn't know what I wanted to do, whatever. I sold cars actually for a
Okay.
little while,
That
which
seems
was
to be a common wrestler job.
that was very interesting, and I was really not cut out to be a car salesman, but I've had people buy cars from me that
Right.
say, the only reason I bought from you, you're not your typical car salesman.
Yeah, which usually means you're too honest.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
Usually what that means.
yeah, so I did that for a while. I was actually a corrections officer for a while,
Okay.
which Marcus, you can
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah, it can be a stressful job
Yeah,
sometimes.
and I remember training for that, and I did that for a little while, but that just wasn't for me. So, I drove a commercial vehicle for a while, not a tractor trailer, but there was a van.
Right.
A friend of mine's dad had called Roberts Express, so I got to
Okay.
travel the country and deliver stuff and whatever. I did that for a while. Basically, how I got really started into wrestling, I seen the wrestling magazines because I was still keeping up with wrestling,
Right.
every so often watching it in magazines and stuff. I saw where Jimmy Valiant and Ivan Koloff had wrestling schools.
Right.
So I decided one day I'm going to go visit these places
Yeah.
and see what's going on. So I actually drove to Charlotte. Me and my dad went to Charlotte, North Carolina, where Ivan Koloff had his school.
Right.
Found his house, and this was before GPS or whatever cell phone, so you actually had to do some digging and find out what was going on. So me and my dad went down there, actually called him at home. He was very nice to us. He invited us in. He explained to me his camp,
Yeah.
which was basically a Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday camp. So in order to do that camp, I would have had to move to Charlotte
Right.
Yeah.
to start training.
Mhm.
The very same day, we drove up to Jimmy Valiant's.
A lot of driving.
A lot of driving that day, but you don't know the half of what I'm used to driving. But we went from Ivan's to Jimmy's, and he lives near Christiansburg, Virginia.
Mhm.
He told me his deal, which was once a week on Sunday from 12 to 4. So after a little contemplation, I got in touch with one of my high school friends
Mhm.
who had expressed an interest in being a wrestler as well. And I told him, I was like, man, this was a great opportunity. We can go train once a week,
Yeah.
keep our jobs or whatever, and see where this thing leads.
Mhm.
Well, he agreed, and we went and started training. So
Like that.
that's kind of how it started off, and that was in the late or early fall of 1995.
Okay.
So that's
With-
been quite a while ago.
With Jimmy Valiant at his
At his training camp,
So I'm
absolutely.
I'm just curious because I've seen some of how he was on TV. How was he in person actually training with?
He was great training. He's 100 miles an hour on television.
Yeah.
Which you can do that is like I was explaining to you how long this interview was going to be. You can do 100 miles an hour for 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
But if you're going to do longer, you need to be real
Yeah.
relaxed. And outside of the ring, Jimmy is one of the most relaxed guys you'd ever meet.
Really?
Really mellow and
Some of those promos say otherwise.
well,
but yeah.
it's like when he started a radio interview, we would be talking just real light and normal, and once the guy said we're on, Valiant would
Just
pop
take
up,
off.
and I've seen the radio guy literally jump back in shock at how much of a light switch was turned
Right.
on, and that's how Jimmy did it, though. So he was a great trainer.
Right.
I started, like I said, with my high school friend, and he lasted about 2 months. he was a good talker,
Right.
but he just didn't have the passion for it.
Right.
So
He just wasn't into it on the.
right, he didn't want to do it for a living. He
Right.
thought it would be something fun to try. He tried it, and it just wasn't his cup of tea.
Right.
So
How was the training? Like, exactly.
the training actually, what Boogie did, and he didn't do a lot of the in-ring training.
Mhm.
He had experienced independent guys. When I went, one of them's name was Frank Parker, who some of the independent guys might have heard of. Denny and Danny Cooley, Mike Williams, and Freddie Richards. And I remember Denny trained me, Frank trained me a lot, and Freddie and Mike trained me a lot. The setup was basically you do 2 hours of drills from 12 to 2.
Right.
And then you would break, and then they would pair you up and you would have matches.
Okay.
So, and then you would do your matches, and then they would critique you, you know, what you can do better and this and that. So
Right.
that was basically, and I believe that's how he still does. So, and that's when I started in '95, and that's, you know, you really, when we started, there was maybe 20 guys there.
Right.
So it was really hard to get ring time, but when you got ring time, you had to make it count.
Oh,
so,
Yeah, definitely.
so you had to learn fast, and you know it was struggle. I wasn't the kind of guy that picked it up right away. Now, there were some guys that were just really
They see it
natural.
once and they got it.
Yeah, they were really just natural at
Right.
it. So, but you know, after a year or so of working, I started to get the deal down
Just
as far
the
as
repetition.
right. But then you know, it's like Boogie said, when you actually are going to go into the psychology of it, it takes years to master or even get it. So, I mean,
there's a lot of people that have been there for a long time that still don't get it.
right, exactly. So, but that's how I started, and that's how Boogie pretty much sets up his camp, was 2
Okay.
hours of drills. Then you break and do your matches.
Okay.
And that's, you already answered one of the questions I was going to ask. I was going to ask, was he still running the camp or had people training there?
Yes, he never quit. You know, as far as that, he lives near his camp, so
Right.
his camp is going to be there as long as he's alive. He's going to
Right.
run his camp.
As long as he's able, he's still gonna.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So now I'm just curious. This is a question just towards the modern stuff, because you were talking about your training and everything, and you see now with all these performance centers and these places, these guys, they go and live at, and I know obviously that they didn't have anything like that, but how do you feel about seeing that now with all these, stuff like that, where these people just get training like that all the time whenever?
Well, you see, everything changes.
Yeah.
You know, everything now is more open about wrestling, and everything is, there's more opportunities.
Yeah.
There is and there isn't, because there's basically 2 major leagues now.
Yeah.
But as far as the independents, there's a lot more opportunities for guys to go and wrestle. So there's more schools now.
Right.
There's more, training people. There's more seminars
Yeah.
than there used to be when I came. Like I said, I had to kind of dig to find out.
Right.
Ivan had a school,
Yeah,
and
just
Boogie
to
had
get
a
a phone
school,
number,
and
yeah.
and that was for the magazine.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was just how the communication. But now everything's, you can Google it. It's on Facebook
Right.
or whatever.
You guys were
So-
having to dig just for a phone number.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but yeah, I think it's great. People now, they can have more opportunities,
Right.
and you can find out more information now than we used to about it.
And after you graduated Boogies, you actually became a trainer there for a short period of time, didn't you?
Yeah, I trained for years actually there, the other guys, and I started, like I said, in '95, and then in around '96, Boogie asked me to go on the road with him because his road partner was having a baby or getting married or
Right.
Yeah.
whatever, so he couldn't commit to it. Basically what Boogie did was he created a job for himself.
Right.
A lot of the older guys didn't have contracts. They would be wrestling per whatever show. Then when Boogie came along in the '80s, he was one of the first ones they had contracts, through the
Okay.
Crockett's and through WWE and whatever. But after Boogie got off of Crockett's television, it was, what do I do? Well, you got to take independent shots. So how do you do that? Well, Boogie started promoting himself, booking himself, wrestling 3 or 4 times a week, and he wanted somebody to go with him, of course, to help him with the drive and whatever.
Yeah.
He wouldn't fly anywhere. So he asked me one day if I would be interested in it. And I thought, man, what a great opportunity.
Right.
I don't know how long I'd be able to do it, but what a great opportunity.
You can
I'm going to meet all these people, and
Yeah.
when I agreed to it, he was like, well, all right, I got your first shot here. We're doing an appearance at a skating rink in North Carolina. Public Enemy's going to be there. So I was like, well, okay, I'm in. Let's
It's
go.
up to you.
I was like, if this is going to be, what it's like, yeah, let's try this and see what it's going to do. And so we were on the road 3-4 days a week, and we would wrestle 3 or 4 days
Right.
a week. And no matter where we were Saturday night, he would do camp Sunday, so we would come back in Saturday night for
And
camp
run
Sunday.
Camp Sunday.
Right, and then that's when I would train as well.
Okay.
We have left Saturday night in Arkansas, drove all night to camp. We would get there just when camp is starting. Then I would have to train 2 hours, the new guys, and then
Yeah.
drive home after that.
Right.
So
and then start all over.
and then I would recoup for a day or two. Then
Right.
Wednesday we would leave again, and we're going to do another loop. So
Well, and I'm sure traveling with Jimmy it was fun. I'm sure there was some fun stories.
it was great, man. I mean, when you're that close to somebody, they become like a second father to you.
Right.
And that's exactly what it was. Because on the road you got to depend on each other,
Yeah.
driving, looking out for each other, whatever.
I mean,
you
that
got
was
to.
that was your mentor. That
Right,
was it. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I'd seen him on television, and it was great getting to know who he was outside of them. So
Now, like, I know you. How long did you do that exactly? Being the road partner and.
we started in '96, and he retired supposedly in 2004. So, which he didn't, but
No.
that is basically I was about 8 years with him on the road
Okay.
doing that. So almost a decade
Wow.
of 3 and 4 times a week wrestling
I
and
mean,
traveling.
that's a
and-
good little run there.
Yeah.
Oh,
That-
absolutely,
that's-
absolutely. And see, that's how I got better, because I wrestled different people,
Right.
different territories, different styles, and it taught me a whole lot about the whole
Right.
aspect of wrestling.
So like after being on the road for so long with Jimmy Valiant, what is probably one of the most memorable stories you would have from being on the
Oh
road?
gosh,
I know there's got to be a lot of them.
Especially with Jimmy.
I mean, there's quite a few, interesting things. I mean, life happens, but when
Yeah.
you're on the road and you're traveling like a gypsy, things are going to happen that's even more, extreme than what would
Right.
happen normally. So, I mean, it's just a whole different lifestyle. It's almost like college in a way. They say college is a different universe.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah.
is a different universe,
Yeah.
and that's why the older school guys that used to travel and drive, it was just a whole different world, man.
Yeah.
Whole different world. Jimmy taught me a whole lot as far as his background and what he used to do and not do. And I mean, as you can remember, some of his most popular times was the 1980s when he was the Boogie Woogie Man.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, he didn't talk about that a lot because he remembered more of the 70s and the older stuff. Because I asked him about the 80s, and he couldn't remember much of the 80s due to some various things. But let's just say, it was very interesting to tell the stories of the older, wrestling
Right.
in the 70s and whatnot. So, and I think one of the greatest compliments he ever gave me was, "Man, you would have made a great wrestler in the 50s and 60s." It was like the old school
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
wrestler. So that was a great compliment to
Yeah.
me.
And after being on the road with him, you said you met a lot of people. Like, who were some of the people that you met being on the road with?
Well, name some people, and I probably know. I mean, we're talking about some of the older guys. If you would know, like Swede Hansen. From the Mid-Atlantic. He was a big tag team in the 60s, Swede Hansen and Rip Hawk, who Rip Hawk was one of the predecessors to Ric Flair. He was known as the Profile, and Ric Flair took a lot of his stuff from Rip Hawk and Ray Stevens. So,
Right. I've heard of Ray Stevens.
right,
Yeah, I've
exactly.
heard of him.
And Ox Baker was
Yeah,
another
I've heard
guy.
of him.
Yeah, I've met Ox several times.
He was one that had like that
It's
notable
right,
like mustache.
right.
Yeah.
Great guy,
Famous
great
for
guy.
starting riots.
Great guy. Don Krenodal,
Yeah.
Jim Nelson, who became Boris Zukov,
Okay.
who I've actually had wrestle in my promotion before,
wow. Okay.
and I've wrestled him. So Bill Eady, who was Demolition
Yeah.
Axe,
Yeah.
Mass Superstar, who I've also had the occasion to wrestle and tag with.
Mhm.
Of course, Ricky Morton,
Yeah.
Robert Gibson,
The rock and roll.
Rock and roll, you know, who are legends. Tracy Smothers, who passed away recently.
Who was severely underrated.
And who was a former BWF champion as well, so he was in my promotion. Francine, who walked out with me, which was one of the highlights of, you know, I love Francine.
I think that'd be the highlight of anybody.
Love Francine, and me and my partner at the time, Tommy Ace, wrestled each other, and Missy Hyde walked him out.
Okay.
So, you know, that was great. Of course, I wrestled Vic Grimes, who was famous of the New Jack Vic Grimes incident.
For being tossed off of the scaffold.
And as I mentioned to you guys earlier, Sid Vicious.
Yes.
Batista, you know, I worked with Batista. That was a great deal. That was Nashville. That was just as TNA was starting.
Okay.
And Jeff Jarrett's father was looking around for talent at the time. But I wrestled Batista at the Nashville Fairgrounds, which is very famous in Nashville for wrestling. And Jim Cornette actually came to me in the dressing room and said, "Hey, I got the guy you're wrestling tonight. Come on over here and we'll talk about things." So he let me in, and here's Batista. And, you know, here's Batista, and Cornette says, "Now look, he's wrestling Lawler next week." He said, "I want you to make him look like Superman." I said, "Well, Jim, we got a problem." He said, "What's that?" I said, "He already does."
So he was a lot bigger back then.
And he was a very nice guy.
So that was back when he was known as Leviathan, right?
He was just getting into the Batista.
Before that, okay.
He was a little bit perturbed at the time because they had just recently brought Brock Lesnar up.
Right.
And he was supposed to go up, but they felt like he needed more seasoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Brock got the call instead of him. So he was a little perturbed about
this
that.
was probably around, what, 2002, somewhere in there?
I would say so, yeah, 2000, 2002, yeah.
Okay.
And he was real nice. Met his girlfriend, you know, everything. Real cool guy. Real cool guy. Real cool guy.
And so you met like Jerry Lawler. You wrestled for his promotion.
Oh yeah, several times. Yeah, in Memphis. I was me and Boogie took several trips to Memphis.
Oh yeah.
So
wrestling was huge over there. So
yeah, and they did different promotions. They were one of the last weekly television shows.
Right.
Saturday mornings live wrestling, and everybody has come in and out of Memphis. Everybody has come in.
At one point, if you didn't make Memphis, you weren't doing
right. Memphis was pretty much, I would hate to say a developmental territory because it was a territory all unto itself. But that was one of the biggest territories you could ever be in.
Yeah.
So
with Lawler and the Jarretts and
the Lawler, Jarrett's, the Fargos even before Lawler.
Right,
so you know, and I met all those guys. I got to wrestle in the Mid-South Coliseum, which was great, and you know, in front of 8,000 people, which was, seemed like a million to me at the time.
Well, in the Mid-South Coliseum, that's one of those places you hear about all the time. You have like Bill Watts and those guys, and the old school, you know.
Oh, so much history there, man. So much history.
And you also met like guys who are big today, you know, in today's wrestling. You wrestled Carl Anderson, right?
Yes.
Or what did he go by?
Well, he was going by his real name.
Chad Allegra.
Yeah.
Yes, Chad.
And then, like you said, Batista and
Doink the Clown.
Doink. I wrestled Doink. The guy Matt Bourne and Phil Apollo and some of them, you know, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy.
Oh, wow.
I was in the Battle Royal in the Coliseum. We were just talking about Mr. Perfect was in there.
Oh, wow.
You know, and he got ready to chop me, and I had Bruiser on my tights at the time. He was like, "All right, Bruiser, I'm going to chop you. You go over." I was like, "Yeah, man." And so he was getting ready to chop me, and darn it, Lawler didn't come and stop him and punch him. So I was like, man, I was about to go out for Mr. Perfect, and here comes Lawler, you know, breaking that up. So, you know, but, you know, Lawler, you know, of course, what are you going to say? Hey, Jerry, what are you doing?
Well, I'm just going to let them have their deal. And
so I'll be here when y'all ready.
But Memphis was great. That was one of my favorite, you know, places to go back to. So.
And those crowds just from what I've seen
man.
and heard about, those old crowds in Memphis were just wild.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we went, they had just started Power Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
That was like the first week of Power Pro. And so everywhere we went, it was packed, man.
Right.
I mean, all the house shows, spot towns, there was, 400, 500, 600 people there.
Right.
I mean, it was just incredible,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty
Yeah,
awesome
right.
to be involved in that.
And I got to, be on Memphis television a few times, which was just an awesome experience.
And at that time, that was one of the big TV shows in Memphis for wrestling. That was a big deal.
Right.
You made it on Memphis TV.
Yeah.
You were doing something.
Right,
so
exactly. So that was a great opportunity for me.
Definitely.
So.
How did it feel seeing you, like watching yourself on TV?
Oh, it was great. I mean, see, it's like anything, man. If you feel comfortable with doing it, it's kind of like you belong there.
Right.
So you don't feel. I mean, maybe the first time you get a little, kind of awestruck, but after that, you just ease right in. You're doing what you always do. I wrestled in front of 14 people. And I wrestled in front of 8,000, but you're doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're doing your job, it doesn't matter.
That's true.
So, I mean, it just makes you, if that's what makes you feel alive, that's what makes you feel alive. So.
Right.
And like, going through that time, what was, like, if you could call out one match, like that was like your favorite match that you worked?
Well,
what would that be?
I had a really, really good match actually the night before I wrestled Batista against James Storm.
Oh, okay.
And that was, I'm not sure the town, but it was near Nashville.
Yeah.
And Cornette did commentary because they were running a little television deal. So they sent me and Storm out, and we wrestled. We were supposed to go like 8 or 10 minutes. But things were going so well, we ended up going like 13 minutes. So it was just a good match for both of us because I kind of was getting what was going on. I had been to some television, so I kind of knew what they wanted for television.
Right.
And he was quite a professional, Storm was.
Yeah.
So it was just a good match from top to bottom as far as I was concerned.
So I'm trying to think, how long was Storm been wrestling by that point?
That's it. Been just a couple of years probably by that point.
Yeah, that, like I said, that was right before the TNA thing got started. The Impact got started.
Because that was his first big place was TNA, but he was still pretty early when they.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had to been just a couple of years in by that point.
And I've also wrestled his partner in Kentucky several times, Wildcat, Chris Harris.
Yeah.
When they were America's Most Wanted, of course. But Chris was a heck of a talent.
Yeah, Chris Harris was really good.
And he really got it, and everything.
Yeah.
The only person I really wrestled, that I thought maybe he was just way ahead of me was Jason Kincaid, who some of the new guys might know. He's done a few appearances on Ring of Honor and stuff. But West Virginia, he was from there, and we did a lot of shows in West Virginia after I got off the road with Boogie. And what a guy, man. What a talent. He could just do any and everything in the ring. But Chris Harris also was like one of those, and Storm was too at that time.
Just all around.
They were young and they were in their prime. They got what was going on, and it was just great that when you got two professionals working.
Yeah.
So, like, what is one name that you didn't get to wrestle then that you wish you could have had? Like, that one match you wanted but you couldn't get? Who would that opponent be?
I think the guy I really liked that I wanted to wrestle was Terry Taylor.
Okay.
I always liked Terry Taylor because he was another guy. He just, every little thing he did was just, made sense, told a story, he got it, And I did have one interaction with Terry Taylor. We were doing a show, I believe it was South Carolina. It was for George South.
Yeah.
And he was a, very religious guy, and this was kind of for a church deal. And basically the deal was I was the assassin.
Right.
I defeated Boogie Woogie Man. What was supposed to happen was the consequence of the match, Boogie was supposed to go through a table if he lost.
Right.
So I was supposed to put him through the table. Well, as I get ready to put him through the table, here comes Terry Taylor. no, you guys can't do this, whatever. And, you know, me and George, you know, are kind of wanting to put Boogie through the table. And so Terry's coming out, no, you can't do that. You know, he's an older guy and whatever. And so we start kicking Terry Taylor. So Terry's down on the ground. I'm texting him. I said, man, I love you. I watched you as a child. I said, it's just an honor to be in the ring with you.
I'm sorry, but you gotta take this.
Such a great time.
And he's looking up like, okay, man, that's cool, you know. And I'm sitting there, it's such a pleasure taking it out. But so that was, and then Nikita comes in for the save, runs us off, whatever. But that was a great story. You know, I love Terry Taylor, and I wish I would have got to work with him one-on-one. So.
He's another guy that's really underrated. He was way talented than than the opportunities he got.
Well, he's always been more of an office kind of guy. But I mean, as a worker, he was just. He was a great worker.
I don't care how good of a wrestler you are. If you're given the Red Rooster, it's just this is not gonna.
Yeah, and that was kind of, you know, but like I said, he's been in it. He had a steady job. He's still, as far as I know, you know, up there in the office.
Yeah, he's still well up in.
Yeah,
he's still well up in there.
So he's made a career out of it, and he's gotten paid handsomely. But that was, you know, a great story, memory that I had, you know, from him. So
that story he was just telling about Terry Taylor, that reminded me of a story TJP was telling us.
Which
about the guy that he was finally got to meet when the one he idolized so much. He's like, dude, I love you, and this guy's like, thanks, I want to wrestle this guy. You remember who that was?
Was it when he was still in San Francisco?
I think so.
Excuse me, L.A.
I think so.
When he was still doing the dojo.
I think so.
Yeah. Because I think it was what, Tiger Mask and another guy, if I'm not mistaken.
It might have been Tiger Mask.
It was. I know it was one of those guys. I don't remember quite off the top of my head, but yeah, he had just met the guy and was like, I'd really love to work with you. And the other guy's like, that's cool, but you, I really want to work with you.
And like through your time, like through your career, you know, you won titles and had some major accomplishments. Yeah, you were number 492 in the PWI top 500 wrestlers in the world or the country.
That's the world list, and that was 2003.
Right.
I had no idea. You guys know. I had no idea. I got the magazine, but I can't remember what year. I'm lucky to remember what I did yesterday.
I think it was 2003. I
was in there twice. I think one time I was 492, one time I was 496.
Okay.
So I moved up and then I was out. So, you know, but still, just to be in there is quite
still making the list.
Right. Still a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I was very proud of that. Very blessed to have that opportunity.
And you won a bunch, like a few titles.
Well, I've been well traveled, so well traveled. The first actual title I won, heavyweight, was in Triton Championship Wrestling, which was a territory based out of North Carolina. That was, you know, I mean, what can you say? You know, you feel like you've accomplished something at that point.
Yeah.
Of course, Bruiser Wrestling Federation, I've held that. New Age Wrestling, I was their champion for a while. So, you know, I've been very fortunate for the opportunities I've had.
So. I see you did a lot of work with the Big Mountain State Wrestling, and you had a lot of title matches. NWA that was the NWA affiliate at that time.
Right.
And I see you done a lot of tag title matches with them, a lot of heavyweight title matches with them. So.
And that was where I wrestled Kincaid, and Maestro was up there.
Okay, that was Big Mountain State.
Right, that was all Mountain State stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, Mountain State. I think Strode was actually champion for a while. I wrestled him several times, Kincaid, and then I had different partners, and we wrestled tag teams for a while. So, yeah, I was very fortunate. I was with them probably a couple of years doing that. So that was after, like I say, after I got off the road with Boogie.
Right. So that was your next thing on that.
Yeah, that was kind of. But see, me at that time, me and my dad was also kind of starting our own promotion. So, and I was just looking for, you know, other independent work at that time.
So that was around the time that y'all started Bruiser Wrestling.
I started that actually right before me and Jimmy got off the road. Me and Jimmy, like I said, we had talked a lot about different things, and I actually ran a show in the high school in Appomattox, but it was through somebody else's license. So the next year I was like, well, why don't I just get my own and do it? So me and my dad kind of actually got into it quite by accident because, like I said, I was still on the road with Boogie, and I couldn't do it full time, but we had our first year, I think, 3 or 4 different shows, and that was 2002.
Okay.
That was actually under our license, and now it's 2021, and we're still going. And we're still going. Yeah. So it's just been, you know, like I said, kind of got into it by accident, and we just had a pretty good run, you know, for that.
I know, like when y'all started, you know, Bruiser Wrestling Federation, it was more like a family business, right?
Yeah, well, that's all it was. You know, it was me and my dad, and that was pretty much the money and the brains behind it. I guess you can guess which one. I don't know, but we had input. He would handle like the promotional aspect of going around getting sponsors, and I would handle the dressing room, booking the talent, booking the matches. So.
Okay.
And so I know your sister, she wrestled for y'all too, right?
Right. Yep, she did for a while. She is currently an RN now, so she has far since left the wrestling behind because, of course, if she would have got injured, you know, that would have really been not a good thing for an RN.
Yeah.
So, but yes, she was the women's champion for a while. She was actually BWF champion for a minute. She actually defeated Mike Williams. So that was an interesting story where Mike had a match with her and it kind of never ended. So then he had a challenge match later on. The guy pretty much knocked Mike out, and then my sister came back out and pinned him. So she got because that match had never ended. So she was BWF champion for a minute. So so yeah, but she you know, she's doing her own thing now, and you know, she's doing very well for herself.
That's good. And if she ever has any patience, get out of line, she can take care of
it. There you go.
You know, like since the time y'all started Bruiser Wrestling, y'all had a lot of big names come through y'all's promotion too.
Oh, absolutely, man. We've had, like, as I mentioned before, Tracy Smothers was our champion for a while. Ricky Morton has wrestled several times for us. Demolition Axe. We've had the Barbarian in on a few occasions. When we did the fair shows, we have had, let's see, the first year we did that, we had Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condren come in, the Midnight Express. The next year we had Maven. Then we had Eugene. So we've had Ronnie Garvin there, who was a world champion in NWA. Hands of Stone, yeah, we've had him there. Shane Douglas was there a few years ago. So I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that we've had. But we've had, you know, several big names, you know, come to the promotion and wrestle for us.
Maestro, he wrestled for y'all pretty
too. Yeah, absolutely. Maestro's been in several of our matches and our events. So.
Also, since you started BWF, you've been doing some training yourself too.
Right. Yeah, I not really, you know, as far as going to Boogies much anymore, but as you know, my niece and her, you know, fiance and twin brother, Brandon and Matt, have come down to my house several times, set up the ring, and you've done some training with them. And, you know, it's great use for the ring because I'm not, you know, with this COVID thing, nobody's really doing a whole lot right now. But it's good to get some ring time and take a bump here and there. So,
like what you used to do for a lot of shows, you would let people train you. They would help you set up the ring and like return you, give them training and things like that too.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Some people would help set up the ring. It was hard to get people to set up it. A lot of people had that time clock where they would come in right after the ring had got set up so they could train.
It just so happens they would show up
and at the very beginning there was a few people that would help train, but then when the matches are over, well, I got to work tomorrow.
I got things I got to do.
But we could get there early to train. But you know, as far as tearing the ring down, yeah, maybe somebody else could do it.
Have fun with that one.
So you know, there are several nights, man. Me and my dad helped just set up the ring and take it down. So I mean, you know, it was all a learning process. All a learning process.
But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that though, because if you go back and look at a lot of the top guys now and the top guys back in the day, that was one of their first jobs was building the ring, putting the ring together, taking it down.
Well, that's how you earned your respect, your stripes or whatever. In Japan, you would do that for 2 years before they would even let you train.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was just a matter of respect.
Yeah, you were a ring attendant before you even got in the ring.
You paid your dues.
And you notice, some of those matches I showed you, the young guys are outside the ring during the matches. That's all they did. They would they would be ring attendants, then they tear down the ring, put it back up.
That would show that you won it.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. But America's a little different, of course.
Yeah, they're not quite as
And even now, it's really different from when I started because it's hard to get people to really do a lot of work for it.
Right.
But what gets me is I see a lot of images on Facebook. I know Cody Rhodes, Jimmy Hart, still some of the shots they took, they're helping set up the ring.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Hart's a Hall of Famer. He don't have to set up the ring.
He's almost 80 years old.
But he's helping set up the ring.
A picture, I think it's from one of your last shows. Jimmy Hart was helping y'all set up the ring.
It wasn't us, but I mean, Jimmy Hart's just that kind of guy.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's how he is. So.
Yeah, he's old school.
And if Jimmy Hart can help set up a ring, anybody should be able to help set up a ring.
If old man Jimmy Hart can get out there and do it,
And I love Jimmy Hart. Man. I love Jimmy Hart. Met him several times. Great guy. Great guy.
How many times did he say "baby"? Why you
I'm gonna tell you now that you want Jimmy Hart. I'll tell you now, if you don't know that song "Keep on Dancing," he wrote that song. He was one of the original Gentrys.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So there you go. See, that's a little tidbit for you. He wrote that. It was a contest to write a song. He wrote that song, but he got no royalties off of it.
Oh wow!
So, but he actually helped write. He was the main guy that wrote that song.
But he gets nothing for it.
Yeah, he's got plenty of money probably now. But when me and my friend Outlaw went to Memphis. Jimmy Hart actually gave me a Power Pro shirt. He had a Power Pro shirt, and he gave it to me to keep, and he was like, "Hey man, I got a great idea. You and your buddy here, y'all could do the blow away diet gimmick where you guys, have this powder like you're gonna lose weight, and you don't lose weight, you keep gaining weight, So he was like, but it would be great, man. It would be great. But he was a real good guy, man. He's always thinking about wrestling. And like with us, what can I do with this person? What can I do with this person? Just a great wrestling mind, Jimmy Hart.
So is he doing like any training schools or anything associated with anything?
No, I know WWE brings him back every once in a while to do appearances and such, but I think he's more or less retired except for some appearances here and there. But like I said, a great guy. And I did get pinned by him one time on Memphis television.
Okay.
Be granted, after I had wrestled Mabel. So, as I was talking about, Mabel came out, and me and my friend Outlaw was against him in a handicap match. When Boogie told Mabel before we went out there, he was like, "Man, this guy," he was talking about me. He's like, "He can do anything, do whatever you want." But anyway, we went out there, had a little television match. Basically, he piled my partner on top of me, did the splash, and that was it. And then I was just kind of convalescing there. And then Jimmy Hart runs in, tells the ref, "Hey man, I'm gonna pin him." He gets on top of me, count him. So actually, he pinned me one time. So, but I love Jimmy Hart.
That's great.
Well, if y'all want to hear a Jeff Jarrett story, I can tell you a little Jeff Jarrett story.
I've not heard many
Back when I
stories about
first started, and I was a big Nitro fan.
Yeah.
And me and my buddy, we would always find out, the wrestlers are going to stay at this hotel. So we would go over there and kind of smooth with them in the bar or whatever. And there was a couple guys that we knew, like Roadblock, I guess, was one guy that used to work on Nitro a little bit. And
I remember the name. Yeah, he was just low card guy.
Right, and we kind of knew him, so we would get in there and we would see all the big stars or whatever. And Jeff Jarrett, I went to the bathroom. There's Jeff Jarrett pissing beside me, so for lack of a better word, and. I was like, "Man, Jared, great, Boogie talks about you all the time." He's like, "You know Boogie?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm training with him. I'm one of his students and whatever." And he was like, do you know how I can get, I wanted to talk to him, and I give him Boogie's phone number in the restaurant while we're pissing. And so I was like, well, I thought nothing of it. Then I went to the camp, I think the next day or whatever, that Sunday. Boogie's like, man, you know who called me? Jeff Jarrett. I was like, really? Well, he remembered the number, and it was great. But that's a little Jeff Jarrett story.
Wow.
Jeff Jarrett, great guy, real sweetheart.
I've always heard he's outside of wrestling. I've always heard he was
great guy. Love Jeff, man. Real laid back, real mellow. Real cool to me. So,
did you ever meet his dad? Did you?
Oh yeah. Jarrett was down when I mentioned I worked Batista in Nashville. His dad, Jarrett, was there.
That was through. Okay.
Yeah, he was looking around for talent, so he was in the locker room back, and of course he was busy, and I didn't really, want to bother him too much. But yeah, I was locker room with pretty much all those guys. So.
He didn't try to give you the chicken salad recipe?
No, not that time.
I have to show that to you later. Okay. It's great.
So, you say you met Jim Cornette a few times too. How was he?
Oh, I love Cornette, man. Love Cornette.
You hear so many different things about him now.
Cornette's a great guy. To me, he was. I mean, we would... if you remember Louisville, they did the Last Dance in Louisville when Ohio Valley was running.
Yeah.
We went there, me and Boogie did, because they booked Boogie for the show. Everybody was there. Kane, Diamond Dallas, Big Show, Chris Jericho, Benjamin and Lesnar were there when they had first started. They were called the Minnesota Stretching Crew instead of the Wrecking Crew. Well, they were there. ICP came in. Back, and Boogie told Cornette, I'm standing there, he's like, man, if you need Bruiser for anything, he can do whatever for you. He was like, well, you might need to take my job because I'm about to kick these damn clowns out of here. I might get arrested.
He does not like ICP.
No, that was actual, I've seen it.
Those two do not get along at all.
I've seen it, so that was a Jim Cornette, but I like Cornette, but he was so busy that day because he was trying to coordinate everything, and they had like 12 matches.
Well, but just the amount of work that guy does for one person is just insane. If you heard, I know you're not a fan of him, but the guy used to run around like a chicken with his head cut off, just doing everything.
Yeah, Cornette's very busy. I mean, he's very entertaining. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's very entertaining.
Very opinionated too.
Yes.
Well, and like we had spoke on earlier, it's a different time. It's a different era. Granted, he's the most vocal out of that era, but there's a lot of them that feel the same way he does that just don't come out and say it either.
I know he's not a big fan of Kenny Omega, though.
I'm not either.
Now, see, I never really had any dealings with Omega, so I really don't know much about him. Now, Hangman Page is a different story.
How are your interactions with him?
He used to wrestle for Promotion North Carolina.
Yeah, he come up through Boogie too, didn't he?
Well,
or sort of.
He had come there once or twice, not as much as they make it out to be.
Because they talk like he trained with
that wouldn't really.
They even had Boogie on AEW with them.
Yeah. Boogie's been up there.
Because they did that Memphis tribute show, and he was there. With
they did a kind of a connection with him, but Page was, of course, a teacher, and he was in Power Pro Wrestling, which is run by a good friend of mine, Jimmy Love. And several matches, Adam Page would come in and wrestle for Jimmy Love.
Right.
He actually wrestled one of the guys that always wrestled for me, Billy Gibbs. I actually managed Billy.
Yeah.
And we were bad guys at that time, and Billy wrestled Page, and we had some, spots with him,
right.
And he was a good guy. I like Adam, and then I ran into him after he went to Japan in West Virginia, and he was starting to get cut more, polished.
Yeah.
So, but he's in the prime of his career right now, so he's doing really well.
Throughout your career, was it ever a goal for you to make it to one of the major promotions, or did you prefer staying in the indie scene?
Well,
some people prefer the indies.
You're always, the goal is to make it to the very top when you start. Now, as years go by, your priorities change.
Yeah.
As I went by and I had these different experiences, as I say, wrestling in the Mid-South Coliseum, wrestling this guy, that guy. I feel like I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And then having my own promotion, and for 20 years, drawing fans, you know, good crowds, and making people happy. I feel like I've accomplished a lot. You know, I might have not been WWE champion, but you know, I feel more satisfied with what I have done, and I'm glad for the guys that I've seen in the beginning of their careers take off on WWE, like Matt and Jeff. I was in Georgia when AJ Styles started, you know, pretty much, so got to see him real early, and you know, guys like that. So I'm really happy for them, you know, to have made it like that. And they can still see me and say, "Hey, Bruiser," you know, so, you know, which is you know good. Like,
that's a cool thing. They didn't forget.
Right, exactly. So you know that's a good feeling to have. That they're your contemporaries instead of your, you know, what are idols or whatnot.
Well, they respect what you did for them.
Right, exactly, and they know the guys that are down here in the trenches, so to speak, in the independents, and they know how fortunate they are to be where they're at. So, and that's why WWE keeps them long term. You know, not 6 months. Or these guys are professionals, and they you know they know what they've got, and they know how blessed they are. So, and I'm happy for them. But I'm also happy for me and what I've accomplished and what I've, you know, built around Virginia. Because see, when I was little, there was no independent shows to go to. I mean, few and far between.
Not here. It was pretty much your major cities. And
that was it. But there was no smaller independent promotions. But if I can go somewhere and we can make 300 or 400 people happy, you know, I'm satisfied.
If you can
with
have
that.
a 2-hour show, and everybody's loving it, there you go. Well, like you said, you're doing your job. You've done what you set out to do.
Right, exactly.
Even throughout your career, though, you even got inducted to Hall of Fame, right?
I was very fortunate in Arkansas. A place called All-Star Wrestling. They inducted me, Boogie, Kamala, Jerry Lawler. It was all like a big Hall of Fame ceremony, and they some of their local independent guys. And we were in, I believe it was Tuckerman, Arkansas. And they had just named the arena Valiant Arena after Jimmy. And it was 102 degrees. And the place was packed. I mean, even for that, it was, and we started about 5 o'clock. And I don't think we got over to like 9. But they had a nice ceremony, and my dad had come out because Boogie didn't want to fly there. They wanted to fly Boogie. And Boogie's like, "I'm not flying, you know, I'm driving." He's like, "I tell you what, for the price of the plane ticket, why don't you bring," and you want to put Bruiser in there anyway, "bring Bruiser and me and we'll drive there." So that's what ended up happening. They paid me the price of the plane ticket. Me and my dad Boogie went out. They inducted Boogie and myself. And then we drove all the way there. We hung out a couple of days, and then the night of the Hall of Fame, we stayed overnight and drove back the next day. So. But it was a very nice ceremony. I was very fortunate that they would, you know, consider me for that. So
that's pretty awesome.
That definitely would be a huge honor. But like, at that point, how long have you been in your wrestling career?
That was a little after, I believe, 2004. This might have been 2005, 2006. So I'd probably been in it maybe 10 years at that point. So.
It's a huge accomplishment for 10 years.
Well, we did a lot of a lot of guys wrestle, and they wrestle once a month. And they think that's a lot, or once a year, and they think that's a lot. Well, me and Boogie used to wrestle 3, 4, 5 times a week. So you do that over 10 years, it adds up. And then when you go back to the same places like Arkansas, they see you a whole lot, and you know you do different things out there. Wrestle pretty much everybody you can wrestle out there. So.
Going back to the BWF, you know, I know COVID has like really put a huge damper on as far as events, you know, that y'all could put on. What is your plans for 2021?
Well, 2021 is a big year for us because it's our 20th anniversary. And last year we got to run one event, which was at the Moose Lodge in Appomattox, which kept our streak alive, so to speak.
Yeah.
But a lot of
right
times,
before COVID had set
yeah,
in.
a lot of times we run 8 to 10 towns a year,
Yeah.
and regular towns. And then we had gotten to, like I said, this COVID thing just kind of knocked everybody out,
Right.
and we're planning on hopefully going back as soon as the state lets us, convene inside again.
Yeah.
If not, we might have to go outside and do some shows. You have to adapt to whatever's
Yeah.
going on around.
And those
So,
would probably be like more towards like the spring, summer.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, right now I don't think anybody can do anything.
Well, and that'll be like limited capacity shows. That's what I'm assuming, 'cause that's what a lot of.
Well, right now I think the limit is 250 you can do outside, which is great. That'd be a good crowd,
Yeah.
for
You
us.
get a good
So.
spring day,
Right.
you gotta, yeah.
Right. So, we'll work around, and that's the great thing about wrestling. It adapts. You
Yeah.
got to adapt even
Yeah.
your promotion to what's going
Yeah.
on. It's such as, the style of wrestling that's changed throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do. It's always adapting, always changing. That's one thing I love about it.
Now, being it's your 20th anniversary, you had some nifty little shirts here.
Oh, not that I'm going to plug anything.
We're
However,
gonna plug it for you.
I have
That
some
one.
fresh off the press
So,
BWF 20 anniversary t-shirts. They are available in 2 colors, orange and yellow, with both black lettering, as you can see. Price is $20 each, large to 2X, and we do have some for our bigger fans, 3X to 5X, $25 a piece. For more information, we have our Facebook page, Bruiser Wrestling Federation, and our website, bruiserprowrestling.com.
And I'm definitely going to get one of these shirts for the
Yeah.
nights out.
yeah,
They are available.
Yeah. So I know back towards, I guess it's probably the middle of last year, I'd come up with Haley, Brandon, and Matt began training with you as well.
Right.
Yeah, that was like one of my childhood dreams that I've always wanted to do. For like the new people just coming into training, what is some advice you would have for them?
I would say you got to find, there's some people out there, schools that are reputable,
Yeah.
and some that are not. So do your research. If you can take advantage of an opportunity such as, with me, like I have my own wrestling ring. Not too
Yeah,
many
yeah.
people have their own wrestling ring
Sure.
in their front yard. So,
And then even getting hooked up with Boogie like you did.
right,
was,
right. And Boogie still got his camp up
Yeah.
there, and like I said, I don't per se do training, but when my niece, her fiance and brother and friends want to do it, hey man, go for it, knock yourself out. And I would love, if anybody else is interested, let me know and we'll work something out.
I know Matt and Brandon, Taryn and Emmerich gone as we know them in the ring. They had their first match, and from what I saw, they looked really good in the ring. And then we had that fundraiser for Southside SPCA that we actually ran through the Big Bang Wrestling
Through our
Facebook
channel,
page.
yeah.
Right,
And the in-ring action that day was really good.
right.
And I'd say they learned exclusively through you.
Well, those guys, they work a lot with each other, being brothers and whatever, but they work hard, and that's
Yeah.
the key. Don't do anything half-ass. If you want to do it, and I saw them out there, man, go 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, just good stuff, man. I mean, you might not do everything perfect, but you're sitting there, you're grinding, and that's what it takes. You got to get past that grind, man, to get better.
You had to ref that last one though.
Yeah, well, hey, it's like Boogie told me when you start running a promotion, training, he said, you'll do anything. He said, you got to referee sometimes, wrestle sometimes, pop popcorn sometimes, sweep up sometimes. You do it all, man. You got to be jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So, like, as y'all hopefully begin running more shows this year, after some of these restrictions lift up and the weather gets better, like, who are some stars and some names that you want to have as like guests with y'all's promotion?
I would like to bring in some, people like I've wrestled with, like maybe, Matt Hardy down the line, Jeff Hardy down the line.
Right.
I'd like to get Ricky back, before he retires.
Yeah.
I've had Tom Brandy in some. I'd like to bring him back.
Yep.
Salvatore Sincere, the Patriot, whatever,
Well,
but
I've seen him wrestle a few times.
Yeah, I've seen him. Too.
yeah, we brought him in a few times as well. He's a really nice professional guy. Want to have him back, of course, Barb back.
Now, when you said barbarian, are we talking like Tongan barbarian? Haku's buddy?
Haku, Powers of Pain.
Okay.
Barbarian.
Okay,
Yeah. Powers of Pain.
Because there's a couple of different barbarians.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
That's why
I know Barb, from through Boogie, but I've been knowing Barb for years. So great guy, real mellow guy.
Yeah, I've heard that he was the mellow one. Haku was the
Haku could be a little explosive if you get on his bad side.
Haku was the killer. Barb was the easy.
And don't get me wrong, you don't want to get on Barb's bad side either. But I remember the first time actually I worked with Barbarian. We were in North Carolina. Me and my friend Tommy Ace was against him and I believe George South. And Paul Jones was actually managing them. And before we went out, Barb was like, I'd never seen him, this first time I met him. He was like, well, guys, I'm going to just tell you, I'm a little stiff in the ring. And I'm like, what? Was he going to kill us or something? And Tommy and I got in there and we're getting ready to start. And we see Barb's going to start. And Tommy's like, you can start. So I got in there and I'm like, man, what's he gonna do? But we locked up and he was great. He was real easy and good guy.
And they're preparing, trying to prepare yourselves. All right, I'm gonna get hurt for the next.
Yeah, you kind of want to stiffen up and be like, all right, man, I'm prepared for anything.
Well, back in the day, he was a big boy.
But he still is. For his age, he still is. Like I said, you don't want to get on his bad side.
But in his prime, he was quite a scary looking guy.
but a great guy, and like I said, real mellow outside, just like Boogie, and just real easy, man. So good dude. But if you want to hear a Francine story, I do have a Francine story. All right, well, just not to expose anything Francine's doing, but I love Francine, by the way. But like I said, one of the highlights, I loved her walking me out down there. But she reminded me kind of the female version of Boogie. She was always business, very professional. She's real laid back, whatever. She would tell us a story about how these guys would always want her panties, to buy her panties, whatever, mail order thing. So what she would do, she would go buy these dollar panties at Dollar General or whatever, Family Dollar, spray a little perfume on them. Here you go, $30. $30. So just a little Francine story. But it's the business, man. That's a little sleight of hand, little shabba dab.
That's going old school.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good.
Do you remember? I think it was the second episode we did. We were talking about Shotzi Blackheart.
Oh yeah.
And she was selling pictures of her poop.
She was taking pictures of dropping deuces and making deuces.
Well, here's my
thing. Selling for $5 a piece. Yeah. She said she made money off of it.
I would rather have something Francine handle than whatever shots he put in her. So there you go. Which not to downgrade Shotzi. I'm glad she's doing well. But Francine was just, she was one of my. When I used to see her on television, I would just be like, "Oh man, Francine." So
How'd you end up getting tied up working with Francine and all?
Well, that was my friend Tommy Ace. I tagged with him several times. He used to run shows down in North Carolina.
Okay.
Not many shows, but every once a year or whatever. And he would bring in, some people. He brought in Sean Stasiak and. I think he brought in Kamala one time and just different ones. But Tommy really liked the girls, and he wanted to bring in Missy Hyde and Francine. So we did that, and the original plan was for me and Tommy to wrestle, I believe it was Midnights, but Francine with us, Missy with them. The Midnights couldn't make it. Bobby was, I think, going through some heart problems at the time. But anyway, so we had to kind of change things around. and it made me and Tommy wrestle each other.
Okay.
With Missy coming out with him, Francine coming out with
Does
me.
he still wrestle now, Tommy Ace?
No, he got married, and I think he's kind of off the grid a little bit.
All
So
right.
I'm not sure, but you know, people come and go, and
Yeah.
you know, it's just you're tight for them while you're working with them for a while. But
Then
it's
you
like
gotta
anything else. If you move jobs,
Yeah.
you kind of get
Yeah.
distant
You
from
go
them.
your own way.
Right,
That's-
exactly. So
Now, going back to talk about BWF, you know, y'all run your shows at the high school gyms, the Moose Lodge, and all that. Have y'all ever thought about like changing the way y'all do the shows, like the format or anything, as far as like getting the show out there publicity wise, or?
we do a lot for publicity. I really don't know. You know, of course, you can't do too much publicity. So any new avenue for publicity, you know, absolutely.
Right.
My dad, like I had mentioned, he goes around and gets a lot of sponsors,
Right.
different local businesses, and he does a lot of the grassroots kind of thing. The stuff really nobody else does.
A lot
You
of
know,
footwork stuff
right?
like
And you know,
that,
different businesses, you go ask them to
Yeah.
be a sponsor. A lot of them, well, I've got to talk to my wife, brother,
Yeah.
you know, co-owner, you know, he's got to come back. A lot of people that even have done sponsors for us that are ticket locations say,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
you've got to go there, you've got to ask them, then you got to go back and give them the posters and the tickets, then you got to go back and pick up the ticket.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a lot of groundwork. We've done that. We do banners outside.
Yeah.
We do, you know, internet stuff now, website, Facebook, you know,
Yeah.
whatever avenues we can promote the show, we try to promote it.
Like, hey, y'all stream y'all shows on? Do y'all stream them to YouTube? or-
We've never done that. I mean, and really the one reason is, you know, like I was telling you, this is more of a family thing.
Yeah.
And my dad's older and I'm older now, so and another reason is just the fact that I think if they see too much on YouTube, they're not going to buy a ticket
Right.
to come see you
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's something like the circus. You want to do it twice a year or once a year in a town, but if you start doing it on television and
They're not
this and
gonna
that,
be
people,
willing to
well,
pay
you
as
know,
much.
take some of the magic out of it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind giving them a little taste, but if you want the whole cake,
Yeah.
you got to come to
We'll
the
give you a
dessert.
match, but if you want the full show.
Right. Well,
it's
you know, I
different.
mean, you know, it's just, you know, I'm just kind of old school there.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Well, and that's the thing. That's how they used to run.
Yeah.
Your gate. That was your. That's what made or broke you as a promotion was when you get people in the door. That's,
Right.
That's how it used to be.
right. And it's like WWE now. Everything's on television. You
Everything.
can.
Literally everything they do is online.
And you can
It's-
watch it 24 hours a
Yeah.
day if you choose to, you know. So, but I want it to be special. It's like, oh man, Bruiser's coming in. You
Right.
know, the wrestling's coming
Yeah.
back to town. You know, I get that old school feel to it. So, and these smaller towns is great. I would rather run a smaller town and have 200 or 300 people that are into it
Right.
than run a big town and they're just kind of sitting on their hands.
They're not really giving much of a
Right.
any type of reaction at all.
And,
Right.
and that's the ones that you can come back 3 or 4 times a year, or however often you run. You know.
Yeah, with me and my dad, we you know, pretty much twice a year is good for a smaller town.
Right.
So, but you know, if they're like we run Appomattox twice usually, the high school and the Moose Lodge.
Right.
But we'll run Pamplin, which is 10 miles down the road or 15 at the fire department.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're still drawing different people from
Yeah,
different areas. So,
All
Well,
right.
I'm looking forward to seeing shows, kick
Yeah.
back off in 2021.
That's right.
Hopefully, as soon as the COVID restrictions lift up, once Governor Northam signs the paper saying all the restrictions are up,
Yeah.
I'm hoping to be hearing about a show that very same day.
don't worry. Like I said, as soon as we get turned loose, it's going to be full blast for a little while.
That's right.
Well, it's definitely been a pleasure, talking to you for the past hour. Thank you for agreeing to do this with us.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
anytime. You
It's been
guys
fun.
are always welcome. Come by, have a drink, do an interview,
Yes,
whatever
sir.
you guys want to do.
Yeah, it's been fun. I like listening to old stories.
Definitely. Thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this interview. Again, I'm Marcus.
I'm Nick.
And we are out.